Hello there YouTube, and welcome back to another video here today, as we are reviewing the 4th episode of Series 12, and the video I'm yet again late for, but finally out with Fugitive of the Dune to be reviewed tomorrow, for definite, for sure. I'll finally be back on track reviewing episodes. So without further ado, let's get into the review. So this episode starts off in a way that we're not used to seeing Doctor episodes starting off, with it following Tessa at first. I don't think Doctor arrives for like first 6 minutes or so. And I kind of like this. This isn't something that's done often in Doctor Who, where we sort of follow the side of the guest cast, and it's like the Doctor and her companions are the guests instead of Nikola Tesla. And that's something that doesn't get done in Doctor Who enough, really, and it's an idea that I quite liked, and this episode done quite well. That was a good start, and it sort of like introduced the character of Tesla quite well, sort of like showing him talking about Niagara Falls and a couple of his other inventions, and also throwing a nice mention of the Mars transmission, which is good to put in the audience's heads, considering what happens later with the skiffer and stuff. But I'll get onto that later. So something that I also like, introducing Nikola Tesla, he's instantly introduced as a lovable character. To be honest, it's maybe quite a bold statement, but I think Nikola Tesla is probably the best, like the most lovable historical character we've had since Vincent from Vincent and the Doctor. He was just such a lovable character. I just immediately really liked his character, and it's just brilliant writing from Nina Mativier, who's, what I will mention, and this was the debut for Nina Mativier and Nina Mansell. I'm not sure whether Nina Mansell directed this first, if it was this or Fugitive of the Dune. But as debuts go, this is a really good debut. This is a really good script from Nina Mativier. It has a very Doctor Who vibe, like very sort of typical Doctor Who. Goes back in time, he's a historical character, aliens, boom. It's got a very typical storyline, and it's written very well. And the directing in this from Nina Mansell is very good. There's a shot once the Doctor's that whole scene where it sort of shows that there's someone else in the lab who shouldn't be there. That whole scene is shot really brilliant. It's really eerie as well. And then they find the green orb ball thing, which I will mention later, as the Doctor says in the episode, that is something from the Ancients. So I don't think it is a throwaway line that they were mentioned. I don't really know much about the Ancients, but from what I do know, I think, do correct me if I'm wrong, they are one of the ancient species, as the title suggests. That one of the very first species, quite powerful, and Doctor says, inventors and stuff. So, and considering what we know about the Timeless Child, that it probably was one of the earliest Time Lords, if it is a Time Lord at all. Possible link, maybe? Don't know, who knows, but just throwing it out there. I don't think it was a mistake that the Ancients were mentioned in this. Then they go and hide, and then the sabotage guy, who was an agent of Thomas Edison's, I believe, got killed by a Silurian gun, which was a nice reference, and that was actually a Chibnall episode, the one that introduced the Silurians back to the modern universe. So it's a nice callback to that, and then the shapeshifter tries to kill the Doctor but misses, then they escape and get onto the train, which introduces the companions to the story. And now the companions, I'm just going to get this out of the way, this just seems to be an ongoing issue, not with just Series 12, it's Chibnall's era. There's just too many companions, and there's just too much space. I mean, Yaz really didn't have much to do. She has a couple of good scenes with Tesla. I saw what they were trying to do, try and link her up with Tesla to try and give her purpose in the story, but nothing really happened there. Ryan had a couple good scenes with the assistant, Nikola Tesla's assistant, but again, didn't really go anywhere. Graham was just Graham, and it's the only one who really is excusable. But that's just because I'm biased and love Graham. He's hilarious. And then a shapeshifter then goes onto the train and keeps up the high intensity. Going back to where I was talking about in the episode, shapeshifter then gets onto the train, keeps that high intensity of the episodes. They go along carriages and escape it. And the shots where they do escape the shapeshifting creature that's a really good shot. That's very eerie. And that's something about this villain. When it was a shapeshifter, at first it was pretty darn creepy with that sort of unsettling growling noise it does. It wasn't like that at all, but you get the gist. And then the red eyes as well, and then just then later on in the episode it just murders everyone, and it was really started off really creepy. They lose it a bit later, but I'll get into that in a bit. So then once they escape the shapeshifter, they then end up arriving at New York, and the set for this episode is really good in New York. It looks really realistic. And that's something that series has had consistently. The sets have been brilliant. I forgot to mention the Orphan 55 with you. The set for that was really good. As much as it wasn't the greatest of episodes, it was a really good set. And the same applies for Spyfall. There was really good sets in that. So then we have some nice scenes with Tesla with, well, not nice scenes, but good scenes where the people, like the people of the town, were protesting against Tesla as he puts it, as if he's a mad, evil, and not, these ideas were completely wrong and only going to cause terror. And to see that affect him really does help the audience sympathise with him. And it's like stuff like this really reminds me of Vincent and the Doctor. Not quite to the same extent, but just seeing that he just never really was accepted in the later on. Well, for people who don't know Tesla that well, it's revealed to them that Tesla ended up dying penniless, and it really gave you Vincent and Doctor vibes. This episode definitely was a good episode, but it wasn't quite there. But you could certainly see the similarities between this and Vincent and the Doctor with the way it portrayed the historical character. And another scene that I loved is when Tesla sort of takes a moment after that. Doctor goes into his lab, sees it's empty. I felt it was a bit weird, but they kind of made a point of that, and maybe that was how it was. But it is what it is, I guess. But then when he comes down and gives the Doctor the orb, she starts to examine it, and then they have that conversation about inventing. And this is just another scene that allows you to sympathise with Tesla, when he sort of just says that there's no greater feel than having an idea and making it reality. And the Doctor and Tesla in this episode, their chemistry is brilliant. They bounced off each other really well, got on really well, and brought out really good sides of each other. And I love seeing their dynamic in this episode. It was probably one of the strongest points of this episode, to be honest. And that probably helped the fact that this was probably one of Jodie's best episodes at this point. I'm not including Fugitive to the Dune, because Jodie has some really good scenes with Queen Skiffer in this episode as well. When she confronts her, you feel that presence from her, which you kind of feel like lacked for most of series 11. It's kind of there a couple times, but it never really had that big commanding presence. And this, when later on when Yaz and Tesla get captured, when she just comes in that ship, you just immediately feel like she understands the situation and she already knows how to get out of it, and she's in complete control of everything that's happening. She has that commanding presence in as soon as she steps in that spaceship. And then later on, when right at the end of the episode, in the final confrontation with Queen Skiffer, you get that exact same vibe when she steps out of the TARDIS. And it's the scenes like this that I've been waiting for with Jodie, and I'm glad we're finally getting them. Like, Series 12 is not only just a step up in the quality of stories and the scale of things and the ambition, it is just a step up in terms of characters. It's just a shame the companions haven't followed as of yet. But saying that, the Coming Soon trailer that was released shortly after this episode aired, I think it was like 1 or 2 days after, that suggested otherwise. That development might even happen to companions, so I am looking forward to that. Now then, coming into this episode, I barely knew anything about Tesla, to be honest. I had heard of Thomas Edison, but I knew he had something to do with the inventions of electrical stuff, but that's genuinely about all I knew. I didn't really know much in this area at all. History really isn't my strong point. But obviously knowing about Tesla and the Edison rivalry now, I'm glad that they touched upon that and introduced Thomas Edison into the story, as some writers may have looked at that as two big historical characters. Ooh, probably a bit too much, but I'm glad that Nina Mativia didn't see it like that. I don't know much about what Thomas Edison was like as a man. I don't know whether he was quite shifty and wasn't that original, but I still feel like no matter how bad he wasn't as bad as this episode portrays him as. I mean, I could be completely wrong. It might have been absolutely terrible, and I'll be willing to accept it if I am completely wrong. But it just felt like a bit too much. A bit like his character was a bit too hateful, and I wasn't too sure about that. But again, without like factual historical knowledge, I can't really make too much of a judgment. But that's just something that I thought I'd bring up. But do let me know in the comments if I am just completely wrong and that was a very accurate representation of his character. Which for the most part it did feel like it, but it was just maybe a tiny bit more likely to do his character, or just a bit more scientifical, because you didn't really get like that sort of feeling, that sort of intelligent presence from him. He just didn't really feel clever at all. It's just, yeah, I wasn't sure about that, but again, just do let me know in the comments below if I am just completely wrong or not. Now into a couple of negative points on this episode. So, I mean, well, firstly, it was well paced. That's not a negative, but I just thought I'd mention that. I felt like going again, comes in Nina Mativia. I think this episode is well written. It was well paced as well. But some of the explanation of what Tesla did in history, I get that she wanted to inform the audience, which I'm glad she did, as I learned a lot from that episode. But it was nowhere near to the extent of Orphan 55, but it did feel a bit too much on the nose. Like the Doctor did seem to go in way too much detail to explain it. I think a more subtle, shorter conversation, just like he did that, and that, and that. Bang, let's get on with the episode. But at times it just felt like she was just tutoring them, in a way, on Nikola Tesla. And I just felt a little bit just out of place at times when I was watching it. Like the scene, for example, when Nikola Tesla goes down to take a moment after being at the crowd, and then Graham's just like, yeah, I know about Tesla, and then he asked the Doctor to explain, and that just felt like a bit too much. I'm not sure how everyone else felt about that, but that just felt a bit too on the nose for me. And the sonic screwdriver in this episode was way too overused. It felt like the Doctor was using it at every opportunity she had. Like when Thomas Edison's agent took a photo of Nikola Tesla, she used her sonic to scan that, like him. Why would she do that? And then it's explained to that is not even by the Doctor, by Nikola Tesla's assistant, who I do apologise, I can't remember the name of her. Her character was a bit bland, but I think that was how it was supposed to be. I think if the story is more focused on her, she would have had a lot more characterization, but as it's focused on Tesla, I kind of understand it, but I didn't really feel that attached to the character. When it's back where I was, yeah, the Sonic just felt way too overused in this story. Just any chance the Doctor got to use it, no matter how unnecessary it was, she just seemed to use it. And for the villains in this episode, the Skifra, as I said, when they were in shapeshifter form, it was creepy, but that was a temporary effect, as I felt that that was a missed opportunity that they didn't delve deeper into that. They only delved into the fact that they could have, the doctor stated that it could have been anyone, and it's sort of, I feel like it should have touched upon the not trusting anyone by making like Tez's assistant or Thomas Edison turns out to be a shapeshifter, and I feel like that's a missed opportunity, not giving the audience that paranoid feeling. But once that we're introduced to the Queen, that's where I feel the villains just start losing it. The design of them is really good. Like, I like the Scorpion design, and the Queen looks pretty good as well. But they're just very one-dimensional. They're just thieves who want Tesla or will destroy the planet in an unexplained way with a spaceship that needs repairs. But somehow they're still going to be able to destroy the planet. Yeah, that just felt like it was thought on the spot, and just felt really I didn't, it was unthreatening. Although that scene was massively helped by Tesla's reaction and the music of that scene, and I've got to say the soundtrack in this episode was phenomenal. Probably one of Sega and Akinola's best, or at least it was, until Fugitive of the Jadoon came out, and that's literally stomped over anything. But I've got to stop talking about it, as that's next episode that I'm going to review. But the soundtrack in this episode was great. And it was, as I said, it was helped by that scene where Tez's sort of like, it can't be the world or me, sort of takes a moment aside and Doctor has a conversation with her, and that's what I meant earlier about their dynamic being great. And this just shows this episode, like, how good it is, like, how it's, everything that is bad about it can be glossed over by something else that happens. It's not perfect, it's not outstanding, but it's a good, solid Doctor Who episode, an enjoyable one as well. And the final 10-15 minutes of this is really good. When they decide that when they get their plan for how to get rid of the Skiffer, it starts off with like a montage of them sort of applying like the electrical leads to I cannot the towery satellite thing, which I cannot remember the name of, but yeah, it connects it to that. Yaz and Thomas Edison trying to get people off the streets, and then leads into a brilliant chase scene where the Scorpions chase Yaz and Edison down the street, and the CGI, I've got to say, I said this in the preview, I believe, of this episode, but the CGI was brilliant in this episode, like, considering Spyfall considering the next episode, and episode 6 and doesn't look that much lighter on CGI, and Spyfall Part 1, Spyfall Part 2 definitely would have been cheap. This episode's CGI stood out. And even Orphan 55 wasn't top class, but it was still pretty good. Yeah, the CGI seems to be fantastic this series. I thought it was brilliant in the series 11, but it seems to be only getting better, which is good to see. But something that I will say about this ending, as much as I do love it, the Queen felt a bit stupid in the end. Like, she just walked in there, tried to be threatened, and then just ended up walking into a trap very blindly. And considering she's supposed to be Queen and was said as an intelligent species, it just felt very oblivious in that entire scene. Although it's clever, the way the Doctor outsmarted her, that was clever. But just walking, I don't get why she didn't let the Scorpions just kill all of them, because considering she says to the Doctor that because of you I will take everything, but she stops the Scorpions from killing companions, which if they actually attacked, there was no way that any of them were surviving. They were all going to die. The death ray was their only shimmer at hope, and that didn't work. So they had no chance of surviving if those Scorpions attacked. So I don't get why she stopped them, and just was way too confident in that scene. That just bugs me a little bit when I was watching it. But it's still a good scene, as I said. It was clever how Doctor smarted it, although the whole hive thing felt a bit unnatural and just sort of came out of nowhere, but you know, it is what it is. And also in this scene they referenced a dead planet, or in the Doctor's terms, Gallifrey. So it's nice recognition of that, as much as this series seems to be how it's dealing with the series arc, has Spyfall, was big information, Orphan 55, Nikola Tesla, we're just reminding the audience that it's there, but very subtly. Fugitive of the Judoon, as we all know, is well, that's somewhere in another galaxy, the amount of information we got from that. And I wouldn't be surprised if something like Praxeus was like Orphan 55, Nikola Tesla only had a subtle reference to it. It seems to be how Al Chibnall's dealing with the series arc in this series, which is nice to see that it's not just typical. But yeah, so and then it was Early good and scene with the explanation of Tesla. Again, that was a bit too much on the nose, but it's quite emotional hearing that how lovely his character was. He ended up dying penniless, and also, as we know, a lot of his inventions were really pretty much spot on with the idea, and it's just a shame that he didn't get recognition. It's quite sad in the end. But yeah, it was a really nice scene, and he had a really nice quote where he said, let them complain or something. The present is theirs, and then he says, I work for the future, and the future is mine. And every time I just watch it, I just sit there with a big smile on my face. He's just so happy for me. He's just a lovely guy in this episode. He's just really lovable. Yeah, he's a really good character. I'm glad he was, that we got to see him in Doctor Who, and visually at least I'm pretty certain there's an audio of him with the Seventh Doctor, but I haven't seen it or listened to it even. But yeah, so overall, what's my conclusion for this story? Overall, it's a very solid Doctor Who episode, not perfect, but definitely not bad. Big improvement on Orphan at 55. It's just like one of those one-off sort of episodes in the series, which is fine considering it's not like Series 11 where every episode is a one-off. But yeah, it's just one of those really rewatchable episodes of Doctor Who. It's fun, it's a good way to pass time, it's enjoyable, well written, well directed, got some really good scenes, memorable moments, great CGI, and just a very solid episode. So overall, I'm going to give this episode an 8 out of 10. So not as good as Spyfall, but big improvement on Orphan 55. So anyways, thank you for watching this review. I do hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Tomorrow there will be a Fugitive of the Judoon review up, which I have a feeling is going to be a very long review, as I have a heck of a lot to talk about. So yes, have fun with that. But yeah, so apart from that, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.